So it's been a extremely busy couple of weeks. I have to say, without a doubt, probably in all my years of being in the Transformer fandom, and especially just online news and stuff, it has probably been the most busiest couple of weeks for Transformers in a very, very long time. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that just because of the big V, so much stuff got backed up and then everything kind of just spilled out all in one shot. But literally the past 3 weeks, there's been daily news of stuff coming out every single day. And as a result, our beautiful Patreon questions suffered as a result of it because the time just didn't exist to squeeze it in. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a whole bunch of them today as a thank you to the fans of all the love and support they've given all these years. And I mean, we're coming up on 10K subscribers soon, so we're going to probably do something special for that too. But for the time being, again, we're going to do some Patreon listener questions. If you want to be part of the Transformer Slag Patreon and help support the podcast and keep this crazy train going in the nuttiness of the Transformer world and all its news, education, and everything like that, again, patreon.com/Protoman, or check the pinned comment or the description of the video below. And what does it get? You get your name in the end credit scroll at the end of every segment moving forward. We just added a new one today. It gives you access to our Transformer Slag Patreon Discord, which we have all kinds of cool stuff. We break the news, have good discussions, we share lore, we share links, we share all kinds of stuff. And the sales section, which is so key to saving money in your hobby, especially in these crazy times with prices all over the place. Man, I was just looking at gas prices today. It's getting pretty brutal. And of course, access to the Patreon listener question. And there's even stuff beyond that. But again, check it out, patreon.com/Protoman. So let's jump into these. We got a whole bunch. This might be a long one, this segment. So at least maybe worst case out of it, you get a nice long segment that you could queue up and listen to and just enjoy while you're sorting your trading cards, painting your model kits, or whatever is your fancy. So let's jump into the first one here. And we got one from Starlight4, longtime patron of the podcast. And they want to know, hey, Protoman, I got a listener question in relation to recent news. Since we kind of knew that we are getting a Minerva via the Deluxe Class Legacy Elita 1, you think we will get the other two Headmaster Juniors or Master Force at some point? Also, with the new Core Class Iguanus coming out, why did they not go with a full Pretender shell? Starlight 4. So the first thing, we'll go with the Minerva. I think and again, this goes back to what Evan and Mark talked about, where with every wave of something, with every imprint, with every whatever, they want to somehow have a little bit of mixture of different kinds of characters, and having a female character is a large part of that. And while something like Minerva, only a couple of years ago probably would have not been a thing, just from even a licensing standpoint and a trademark standpoint, now they got to really dip into the well of female characters and always have something available for a wave or two. Look, we just saw with the Wreckers line, one of those fossilizers is a female character. So it's kind of the same thing here where, yeah, we're getting Minerva because they needed to have a female character for that line, but will we get the other two Headmaster Juniors in the case you're referring to, Go Shooter and Cab, or Cabu? I think that at some point they're going to do the American equivalencies. We will probably get Go Shooter's equivalency of Sirens and Cab's version of Hosehead at some point. But when that is, I don't know. Because I would like it if those were revisited, that they were done properly in a Headmaster's kind of application, because that's how I associate with those characters. I mean, obviously the Furman comics also did a fantastic job of, Sirens and Hosehead along with Nightbeat, which is what Minerva was in the Western world. But at the same time, I think that it's not just yet. But I do feel at some point they're going to run out of characters, and to just do those guys would be fun. And again, someone like Sirens, it's a Headmaster police car. So there's so many police cars and Transformers that then you could have fun with that mold afterwards and repaint it into everything. And it's kind of the same thing with Hosehead. It's a red fire truck. There's so many fire trucks and Transformers that after you do the Hosehead, you could retool that. Oh, it's Inferno now, and it's Fire Convoy, aka RID Optimus Prime, or it's, it's Fire from the Micromasters, although that'd be a really oversized Micromaster. But the point is that there's so many. There's so many that they could do something with. Even Paint It Blue, Hotspot, they're luckily for those two characters, they're very popular alt modes that could be tooled and tweaked into other things afterwards if need be. So I think that is a possibility. And the second thing with your core class Iguanas, why didn't they go full Pretender? That's just been an issue for forever. Like the last time we got anything close to even a legitimate Pretender shell was because of Fun Publication stuff. Like it was, and that was more, Fun Pub going, hey, we could use these old molds. And I mean, they were going to continue with that. They were going to continue doing more Pretender stuff afterwards. But on the more retail side of thing, I don't know. I think that they're just kind of scared to do it. I really do. I feel that the best we got were those little decoy armors, aka, the primes from Power of the Primes, which I thought were super fun and fantastic. But sadly, two things we learned from it. Number one, that's probably the most that Hasbro was willing to risk at doing Pretender shells, is something at a small price point like that with those decoy armors. And number two, those things didn't sell well, which broke my heart because I loved those things. And those things did not sell well at all. Those things were clogging the shelves. So Hasbro probably looked at it and went, oof, okay, I guess we'll revisit that in 10 years when people lose interest and want those characters again. But again, we'll see what happens. But I as much as I love Pretender shells and Metal Hawk and all of those characters from Master Force, I feel that Hasbro tried, Takara tried, and the interest just wasn't there, which is a shame because I would love more of it. But maybe I'm just the minority on that one. Next question we got here is from Star Caliber. And what Star Caliber wants to know, and he was like, oh, I can't decide between this or asking in person or just on YouTube. So he's going to ask as a long-time caller, first-time listener, long-time caller, or however that term goes as he writes here. What are the odds of getting a Gen Selects release of God Fire Guts Ginrai? Seeing as we got the mold, it does exist in the Legends line, and they did it for the box set in the Western release. And they did give us the final boss in Black Zarek. Thanks again for everything. Also, speaking of small bot ideas and Master Force, odds of us getting the last Pretender Wave Rider in the Power of the Prime style. So to answer the first part, that mold, it's a biggie. Will we get it in that Fire Guts color scheme, so that orangey kind of color scheme? Ooh, probably not. Probably not. I mean, I think that if there would have been a time for that to exist, that would have been when that mold was fresh. When that mold was brand new and it was available in Japan, Takara Tomy Mall exclusive, Takara Tomy Mall exclusive. That would have been the right time to do it. And they didn't. They didn't do the repaint. And then, of course, the original Fire Guts, which I believe was an eHobby exclusive from the original Ginrai mold, Super Ginrai mold with the God Bomber attachment. I don't think it'll happen. Me personally, I think that's something that's big and expensive like that. I don't think maybe if they ever do the character again, another attempt at the character, and we get another fresh mold out of it, maybe they'll consider it. But the sad thing is as time progresses, sometimes the budget that was available for, let's say, that price point doesn't exist today. And if it would happen, it would have to be a pricey item. It really would be. Black Zarek, I've said this before on the podcast. Scorponok, the Titan class, came out at a very weird time. It was like right at the heart of the Big V. And Hasbro didn't move a lot of units of Scorponok as a result, because a lot of the, in-person retailers, whether it be Walmart, Target, or whatever, because they thought it was going to be the end of the world because of a certain Big V, they didn't order tons of units of this stuff that was going to take a lot of space. That was a big investment. Sure, the online retailers did well. The Amazons and everything, they moved their units. But when you're talking thousands of Walmarts, thousands of Targets, thousands of Toys R Us's in Canada and other parts of the world not participating in that was a lot of units that could have been moved. And so stuff like Black Zarek really being the first repaint of this new era of Titan classes, because when you really think about it, we didn't get a repaint yet of, as of this recording, I don't want to see it in the comments, 10 years later. But as of this recording, we don't have a repaint yet of our War for Cybertron Siege stuff, Titan class, like Omega Supreme. We didn't get a repaint yet of Scorponok at that point. We didn't get yet one of the Ark. And when you go even more back, when you look at stuff like Triptychon, when you look at stuff like Predaking, when you look at stuff like, I have to turn my head here, but the point is that they were kind of hesitant to do repaints of Titan classes. And when you enter something like what happened in 2020, they weren't going to repaint Scorponok, but then what happened in 2020, they were like, we got to make more money from this mold because we didn't get to make a lot of money with the original one. So as a result, that's why Black Zarek became a thing. And hopefully we'll see more. Hopefully we'll see more. Again, the world is so weird right now that sometimes it's so hard to predict what companies are going to want to do in a world where people have less money and they have to put that money towards other things, where it gets to a point that they're probably going to have to do smarter moves, if anything else. Then you say here, and speaking of smaller bot ideas and Master Force, odds of getting the Pretender Wave Rider from Power of the Primes. You know what? That mold exists. It's out there. It was tooled. It was planned. It's out there. It's just not released. And considering how it's a small price point item, I'm surprised they didn't even just try to do like, oh, hey, it's, Japan is notorious for doing this, where with small price point items, whether it be mini-cons or microns as they're called, or little stuff like that, oh, hey, spend 6,000 yen and you get this item free. I'm surprised they didn't even do it as a promo item or something. That mold still exists. That R&D still exists. Maybe at some point it'll happen, or maybe that mold is just going to sit forever on the shelf and it'll never happen. But I would like it if it did, just, to complete the crew. For people who don't know, that was supposed to be a pre-order item with Grand Maximus back in the day. If Grand Maximus, I believe, hit, I think it was supposed to be 4,000 pre-orders, and he didn't hit that at all, which said a lot about Japan and big price point, huge Titan class figures, how it just couldn't hit that amount of pre-orders. It just didn't happen, unfortunately. So, I hope it does. I'd love to complete my Master Force Pretenders, but, with those Titan armors, but that's not the case, unfortunately. We got a question here from George. Hi, Proto. I got a question for you for the pod. My question is, what is happening with the TF MP line, Masterpiece line? There seems to be little to no momentum for it for a while. Like, what happened with that MP Cliffjumper and that MP Jetfire / Skyfire? And when are we going to learn more about the next train bot from Raiden? So when George sent this question, I think it was 2 days before we got the Trailbreaker news. So as George's question, yeah, we got Trailbreaker now that's coming. And so that shows that there's at least some momentum happening with the G1 Masterpiece stuff. Of course, I believe he's referring to the G1 Masterpiece stuff because movie Masterpiece stuff has a consistent flow. We just had that blackout that we talked about a couple weeks ago. In terms of the Cliffjumper and the Skyfire, bro, I'm with you on that one. We're like the Cliffjumper, we've seen practically everything of that figure. We've seen test shots, we've seen prototypes, we've seen final color images from the factories, all of these unofficially through stolen factory sources. But yet, no word yet from Hasbro or Takara. Maybe they're just waiting for something to clear. Maybe they want to do some kind of, timing kind of announcement, but no word yet on him. Very weird. But we do know it exists, so something's going to happen at some point. And it's an official product because it had an Autobot logo on it. So it wasn't like a leaked third-party item either that was confused as an official Masterpiece product. As for the MP Jetfire, we saw that one or two images from Generations magazine through a million publications. So we do know that's coming at some point. I think they're just waiting for the right moment. Again, the Big V messed up everything. Everything got pushed back. Look, our big Hollywood movie Transformers got pushed back from it. So if a big Hollywood movie and its toy lines and its planning all got messed up, I could only imagine the small little things like, non-fiction related MPs and stuff like that don't really need to have a proper timing to meet, like with deadlines. And, we got to make sure that Masterpiece Cliffjumper comes out because he's going to be in the next TV series. Not really. So those ones, they're a little more loose with that. And as opposed to when's the next Raiden piece going to be announced? No idea. But we do, like just a couple of days ago as of this recording, there was I think it was the Suzuka the Suzuka Hobby Show, which was not too long ago in Japan, and they had Shuki the train bot on display, so he was there, and they were teasing at already the next stuff to come. So I'm pretty sure we're going to learn more about that next train bot very soon from the MPG line, MPG 03 that you're referring to, whoever that will be at the time. So I hope that answers that. Then we got Grimlock Customs, and he wants to know, hey, Proto, I have a listener question now that we finally gotten a first look at the EP1 Haslab Victory Saber in all its glory. Where do you think Hasbro will go in the terms for the next Haslab? Do they continue giving us Japanese exclusive characters, such as Haslab Deathsaurus, to go with Victory Saber? Or do you think they'll go somewhere else entirely? What would be your personal pick for the next Haslab? Well, my personal pick also, I think, would probably be the most logical in terms of, hey, let's just do something that's going to probably have some guaranteed sales. So my own personal pick is also something that just kind of makes sense, which is Primus. Like I just think that, maybe, but at the same time, maybe give it a year or two. Like, we kind of get out of this financial funk for a lot of people. And because it's kind of the same thing where Unicron came out, and then Unicron came out literally the day after TFCon. And so all of those hardcore fans, the fans that have the big money to fly out to conventions, to get hotel rooms, to spend big money in the deal room, to buy exclusives, all of that craziness. And then the next day, here's Unicron, and they all had credit card bills they had to fill out and take care of. So like, it's all going to be timing, but I think Primus is just the obvious answer. And you could do a really awesome Primus at that price point. Like maybe it doesn't have to be Unicron's price, but even if you could do it at 500, like you could probably do something really stellar with that. I mean, already the original Primus Cybertron Galaxy Force toy, the original one, is a fantastic figure. I think it's incredible, great veneering, great detailing. I mean, that all falls in the hands of Aaron Archer and the whole crew there during that era of 2005, 2006 that did an amazing job with that. But, I mean, I really think that we could get a new Primus. I think we could really pull something off, because at the end of the day, that's a great item that you could bring, just like when we had Unicron and they were going to conventions, and whether it be SDCC or Texas Comic-Con or whatever, and or Toy Fair, and bringing that item and having that big fancy item be the centerpiece of your booth, having a Primus that turns into Cybertron, which in my opinion is even more iconic to the casual fans. Maybe even some casual fans don't know who Unicron is, but they sure as know the planet Cybertron, where the Transformers came from. So having imagine you go to that booth and there's the Primus in robot mode and the planet Cybertron in planet mode, all beautiful on display there. That's an eye catcher. That's going to get people's attention. That's going to get people talking. And that's a big talking point item where, Star Saber, and I love Star Saber to death. Don't get me wrong. I love Star Saber, but he doesn't have that cachet where luckily we're not able to test that. There was no ability for them to go around to conventions. Yeah, I mean, I think there was the Fan Expo Toronto that had it on display or something, but that was about it. But they really didn't have that ability to kind of, I guess, do a tour with Star Saber and bring them around to all the conventions and show them off and stuff, and really be able to test if there even is an interest from a public standpoint. But that's a whole other discussion in terms of the notoriety and the public education of some of their lesser-known characters due to their regional differences of Transformers Victory being a Japanese-only product for many years. And again, yeah, okay, he was in the comics and IDW and stuff, but that's the comic industry. How many people are reading those, really, that are buying customers? Trust me, as someone that sat next to James Roberts 3 years in a row at Transformer conventions, and seeing, here's the dealer room, here's all the people that buy stuff and toys and everything, and who's in the line to get autographs from James Roberts, it was two very different markets. And the people who buy the toys, I know this might be a controversial question, but answer, but the people who buy the toys are a very different market than people who read the comics. Yeah, there is a little bit of crossover, but there also is a huge gap there in terms of those numbers. But that's a whole other discussion. So I hope that answers that one. And the last one we got here today is from Technical Co. And Technical Co. wants to know, hi, Proto, here is a question that I had on my mind. Now that we have 2 fossilizers that are going to be included in the Wreck and Rule collection, do you think there's a possibility that Hasbro or Takara Tomy will bring back the Micromaster vehicles or modulators, for example, Sky Hyper, Landshaker, or the Thunder Owl? Well, the ones you're mentioning there are more so play sets than Micromasters, because the Micromaster price point and the modulators are kind of like 2 different things. The Micromaster price point didn't do well. It wasn't that popular, that price point. Same thing with the little weapons and stuff like that. All those little Target Master weapons in Siege, they didn't do well. And because those things didn't do well, they kind of slowly phased those out by the time we got to Earthrise going into Kingdom. So unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The modulators, on the other hand, while the Micromaster bases, and I loved the Micromaster bases, they didn't do well either. That's why there's 3 molds across all of it, and they've been repainted to that just to make up for the fact that they didn't sell well. They just repainted them over and over. It's a shame, because I loved those things. Where they saw with the fossilizers, the fans really loved that. You weren't going to buy 3 grease pit modulators or 3 airwave modulators and make big crazy custom stuff, but people were buying 3 or 4 of the same fossilizers and making crazy combinations of creatures, and as a result, that's 3 or 4 sales for a single character. So there's almost an army building kind of aspect that existed with those fossilizers that unfortunately those Micromaster bases, and more so the modulators, just didn't do. And the ones that you're mentioning here, like the Thunder Arrow and the Landshaker, those ones don't even lend themselves to the concept of the modulators, because the modulators were more those Micromaster bases, in the sense that they were the gas station, the fire station, those more square kind of bases that folded to make another playset, where the ones you're referring to here are those larger Micromaster bases that turned into vehicles and stuff. I mean, it's kind of like we never really get a proper, I don't know, like a modulator Scorponok or something, because it's better off being kind of its own standalone thing. I would love the Thunder Arrow. That was Deathsaurus's ship in Transformers Victory and stuff. I would love that modernized and everything, but that would have to be modernized into a playset that's compatible with a price point. And how big would that have to be? And on top of that, it wouldn't transform into a robot mode, or they could work in one, don't get me wrong. They could work in one, but I mean, what is the price point that it's going to be aimed at that it could be a playset for? So that's a tough one. It's just, all I'm going to say is the Micromasters, unfortunately, I loved them, and the modulator Micromaster bases. Those were some of my first Transformers, and they just didn't do well. They just did not do well, and as a result, that stung and really kind of slowed down everything at that point. So hopefully it'll happen. I mean, I would like some of those big again, that Thunder Arrow, sure, 100%. I love the original. The original's awesome. But at the same time, where does it belong? That's the bigger question. Where could you fit that in that it would make sense in a lot of ways for Hasbro and Takara to do it? But yeah. And that's it for the questions. So we tackled all of those ones. We're going to have more in the near future, but figured we'd just give you a good half hour or so of questions right there just to talk about some stuff. Again, if you want to be part of the Transformer Slag podcast, again, patreon.com/Protoman, or check the pinned comment or the description below. Hopefully we'll have it a little quieter on the news. Hopefully a little quieter on the news this week. That way we could tackle some more questions and everything, and actually do more discussion videos. And I know people are always asking about Transformer finance videos, especially where's the market going with Transformers and stuff. We're going to do more of those in the future. It's just been insane how much new product has been coming out every single day, and the discussions that had to be done with those. But again, thanks everyone for coming, and we'll talk to everyone again really, really soon.